Hello, my dear friends. This week I've been depressed. This past Sunday we celebrated Purim, and Purim was exhilarating, inspiring, because Purim teaches that as Jews we never give up hope. Al tityaesh. Don't think that it's hopeless. There's no way out, because on Purim things were as dire as can be. The entire Jewish population was going to be totally annihilated in one day, and on a dime, the whole situation was flipped. In the Megillah it says v'neha fachu. It was turned upside down. Everything was reversed in 1 second. It went from a time of great impending tragedy to the salvation of Jewish people. Haman and his children were hung. The anti-Semites in the kingdom of Achashverosh were also put to death. So it's a very inspiring message. And I mentioned last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, that Purim 23 years ago, during the Gulf War in 1991, where Saddam Hussein was launching missiles against, Scud missiles against Israel every day. And the United States Army, together with a coalition of other countries, was able to conquer Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and the surrender was on Purim. It was the day of Purim in 1991. So I thought, Mirz Hashem, God is going to. Here's another opportunity. What better day to bring this war to an end? It's been raging on for so long in Gaza. Purim is the day. Alas, Purim came and went. There's been no change. Things are the same as they were. This is why I'm depressed. I read the news. The news every day is one day is more depressing than the other. The United Nations voted that there should be a ceasefire, and America turned their back on Israel and did not veto the resolution. The anti-Semitism in our country continues to flourish and to escalate. I was just reading an article about anti-Semitism in Canada. It's off the charts. There's so many problems around the world for the Jewish people. The hostages are still imprisoned. In captivity. The war against Rafah has been pretty much put on hold. Nothing is happening right now. So after Purim, it was like a letdown for me. And so I was looking to see, I need to be mechazik myself, to give myself inspiration, and then share it with you. What inspiration can I take away from this week's Parsha? This week we read Parashas Parah. So the question of the Parasha of Parah is about the Parah Aduma, the red heifer, which was burned, and the ashes were used to mix with water and be sprinkled on people who became tamei, impure. So the question is, we read that Parsha always right after Purim. So the question is, what does it have to do with Purim? Ostensibly, it's because in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, they had to purify themselves before the month of Nisan, because they were going to bring the Korban Pesach. So therefore, the arrangements for the Parah Aduma were made and before people were purified themselves, before the month of Nisan began. But it still is troubling. Why? The fact that it's juxtaposed, right? It's the week after Purim that we read Parashas Parah. It would seem to indicate there's some deeper connection. So I was thinking, in light of what I just said before, that I've been depressed, I was thinking that Parashas Parah teaches, it's true that from Parah we learn that there is no such thing as a world running in its natural order. Things don't happen by themselves. It's not nature. There is no nature. Nature means what God wants. And it's not run by politics, and it's not run by politicians, and the politicians don't make any of the decisions. The United Nations doesn't matter. Everything is in the hands of the Ribbon Shalom. The Ribbon Shalom runs the world. That message is still 100%. But what Parashas Parah teaches is, don't think, now that you know that God orchestrates everything, and the whole world is like God's like a puppeteer, and he's moving pieces all over. Don't think that now you're going to be able to look around the world and see the Yeshua, the salvation emerging quickly. As soon as you daven for it, it's going to be, everything's going to be okay. That's not the way things work. Para is the Chumash describes para as a chok. It's a decree. It's something that where there's no logical explanation. It defies human understanding. It's incomprehensible to human beings to understand. What it's a mystery. Para. The nations of the world make fun of para. Why if you burn a red heifer and you take the ashes and you sprinkle it with water, it makes people pure? Sounds like hocus pocus, voodoo, chas v'shalom. So the Parashas Parah teaches that even though it's true that God is there all the time, and God is running the whole show, and God is manipulating, God is directing, but nonetheless, God is going to remain a mystery. The ways of the Rebbeinu Shalom are mysterious to us, and we don't fathom, and we don't understand how God operates. We could have all sorts of kashas. Why did October 7th take place? Why did so many people killed? Why the atrocities of the hostages? Why are there over 250 Israeli soldiers who were murdered in warfare, died in the last 6 months? Kashas, questions, all sorts of questions. So Parah teaches, Purim, it stands on its own. The message of Purim is the same as it was last week. It's the same as it is now. But Parah teaches that you have to realize that God operates in a way that is hidden, and it is not in a way that human beings can understand what His plan is. I was on the phone yesterday with Izzy Rivkin. He's a tzaddik. He calls me every Thursday night to wish me good Shabbos. He said a terrific word. Izzy Rivkin. He said, I asked him, Izzy, what's going to be in Eretz Yisrael? What's going to be with the war in Gaza? He says, I don't read the newspapers, because you read the newspapers, everything is terrible. He says, in the Megillah, God's name does not appear, and that's because everything that God does is behind the scenes. That God is totally invisible, and He operates in mystery. He says, so why should I read the newspapers? And why should I read the news? So the United Nations doesn't make any difference, and the United States government, if they betray Israel, so it also doesn't make a difference. I mean, the United States, I have to say, they till now they've been pretty good. I don't want to say they completely betrayed Israel. They've been very supportive, but the last week or two, things have seemed to be turning around, moving in a different direction. Senator Schumer sent a letter, scathing letter about Netanyahu, that he should be replaced and weakened Israel. So, but the bottom line is Izzy Rivkin's point. It doesn't matter what the United States government does. It doesn't matter what the anti-Semitism in America. It doesn't matter what Hamas does. What matters is the Rebbeinu Shalom is on our side. How come we don't see Him? Well, God's name does not appear even one time in the Megillah. Izzy said right to the point. So we all have to be mischazek. We have to be strong, and we have to recognize that even though there's so much to be worried about, and there's so much to be concerned about, and there's so much tragedy, and there's so much uncertainty, but we have to continue to have emunah, we continue to daven, place our trust in the Rebbeinu Shalom. And even in today, in modern times, it wasn't the Nahapachu didn't happen last week as we were hoping, but it can happen at any moment. The prophecy of Bilam that he says, "Heinam levadad yeshkon," the Jewish people will stand alone. That's a prophecy for all generations. The Jews always stand alone. Actually, the prophecy, it was already stated in the Chumash earlier on, when Yaakov fought with the angel of the Sarshal Esav, and it says, "Vayivase Yaakov levado." Yaakov was left alone. That's the nature of the Jewish people. We're left alone. In the Megillas Eicha it says, "Eicha Yashua Badad." How could the Jewish people be? They had so many allies, and now they're left alone. Everybody has abandoned them and betrayed them. That is the nature of the Jewish people. But I'll tell you, we're much better off having the Rebbeinu Shalom on our side than all the rest of everybody else, all the politicians, all the governments. If we have God on our side, we're the strong. We have the upper hand. It's a mystery. That's what Parashas Parah teaches. It's a mystery. We can't fathom. Certain things are beyond human comprehension. Why God is operating this way, we have no idea. It's beyond our understanding. But that's the way it is. We have to be strong in our emunah and in Mirz Hashem by having emunah and bitachon and continuing to daven and continuing to do mitzvahs with the intention that we're doing that to strengthen the forces of kedusha in the world. Klal Yisrael is the source of is the holy nation. By doing so, Mirz Hashem, we can't predict when, can't make a date and say this is when it's going to happen, but we have to continue to remember God behind the scenes. He is the one that has our back, and that's all that really matters. Thank you for listening, and have a good Shabbos.